What's going on, you guys? My name's Tynot, and welcome to Top 5 Unknowns, 5 documentaries that ruined people's lives. Number 5. The film Blackfish tells the story of an orca named Tilikum, as well as the animal's trainer named Dawn Brunchot. Dawn was a senior trainer at SeaWorld and worked in the park for over 15 years. She was one of SeaWorld's most memorable talents, though in 2010, she lost her life to Tilikum, with Dawn being Tilikum's third victim. In February of 2010, Dawn was performing in the Dine with Shamu show, an event in which onlookers could eat dinner while watching the performance poolside as the animals and orcas were fed. As the show concluded, Dawn approached the edge of the pool and began to stroke Tilikum's head. Just then, the animal took hold of Dawn's shoulder and dragged her into the water, with all of this being captured on video by guests. She was drowned within moments of being submerged, and over a dozen witnesses are known to have been present at the attack. During an autopsy, it was found that Dawn had either passed away from drowning or from trauma. Her spinal cord had been severed and she sustained several broken bones. Her left arm had been lost and her knee had been dislocated. Tilikum returned to the spotlight the following year, having only been removed from service for 13 months following the attack. The film Blackfish alleged that Tilikum and several other whales that are in captivity were victims of terrible and cruel abuse. The animals are known for being quite social, though they've allegedly been kept from their families and placed in aquariums far too small for their size. The film also details and explains the animals' drooping dorsal fins, which is a clear symptom of the neglect that they're believed to endure. With this fin issue only being in about 1% of all killer whales, it's certainly cause for concern. After the film's release, SeaWorld suffered a loss of an estimated $15 million due to visitors no longer returning to the park for fear that they'd be endorsing animal cruelty. The park has never returned to its former earnings, with the film causing permanent damage to the finances of the company. Additionally, in 2018, SeaWorld was ordered to pay over $5 million in fines after they were found to have misled investors regarding just how much the film Blackfish had impacted their finances. Number 4. Michael Jackson is one of music's best-selling artists of all time. He's known widely as the king of pop and is regarded as a cultural icon of his time period. He's remembered for his unusual lifestyle, specifically how he lived in what was essentially a private theme park that he called Neverland. Michael was the 8th child of his siblings, with him rising to fame as a solo artist in the early 1980s. Today, he's sold over 350 million records, with Thriller being one of the top-selling albums of all time. A journalist by the name of Martin Bashir was given access to Michael's private life, during which time he developed an intimate documentary with Michael titled Living with Michael Jackson, being released later on in 2003. The film detailed the life of Michael during his time living in Neverland, at which time it became public that children who endure a troubled home life are oftentimes invited to stay with Michael at his home and even sleep in bed with him. This all came out after Michael had already been accused of sexual child abuse back in the early 90s. Michael was under the impression that the film was to focus on his music career and certain aspects of his personal life, though the final product painted a much more sinister image of the artist that Americans had come to know and love. One of the most memorable images from the film was the iconic photo of Michael Jackson holding hands with an underage boy. Michael was eventually led to file a formal complaint regarding the film, in hopes of having it removed from TV and potential cinemas. He alleged that Martin had persuaded him to trust him and that he was misled regarding the details of the project. He stated that he felt more betrayed than he ever had before, stating that he would have never had any intention of harming or exploiting a child. Regardless, the film did irreparable damage to both Michael and his career. Later on, he was taken to trial once more regarding sexual misconduct charges with children, though he evaded these charges with little more than a slap on the wrist. Later in 2019, Michael was once again in the spotlight over 10 years after his death, as 2 adult men have now come forward alleging that Michael sexually assaulted them as children. Because of this, radio stations across the country have begun to boycott his music, with his name now permanently being tarnished. Number 3. In 2015, a very controversial film made the rounds online known as Going Clear: Scientology and the Prison of Belief. The film made very bold claims, alleging that the Church of Scientology draws in followers specifically for their money, and even goes as far as suggesting that the church willingly and knowingly subjects its lower members to physical and psychological abuse. It also takes aim at the church's IRS exemption status, stating that the Church of Scientology follows no real form of religion, and that it's simply using the name church to avoid paying taxes on its unbelievably large amount of yearly earnings. The film states that Nicole Kidman, the ex-wife of prominent church member Tom Cruise, was labeled as a potentially troubling individual, and that she posed a threat to the church. It was due to the fact that her father was a psychologist, and the Church of Scientology does not believe in such a profession and is firmly against it. The film claims that Nicole's phone was wiretapped, and that Tom Cruise was required to report to the church on a daily basis regarding his relationship with Nicole. The film is known to have harmed the image of the church and shed light onto many of the wrongdoings that take place within its walls. However, little can be done to stop the film from spreading its message, as there's no evidence to suggest that the claims are not valid and completely true. The film's director says that big-name actors are to blame for the church's ongoing misconduct, as they continue to fund the church, yet never make any calls for change in its policies and belief systems. Number 2. Michael Peterson is a well-known artist from the 90s, most notable for his books A Time of War and Bitter Peace. However, in 2001, Michael allegedly found his wife lying unconscious at the bottom of a staircase at their home. He phoned police for assistance, but it was far too late. An autopsy later revealed, however, that his wife had not passed away from falling. Rather, she'd sustained head injuries and passed away some 90 minutes after the fall ever took place. Michael eventually pleaded guilty in court to taking his wife's life, and in 2003 he was convicted. For years following his conviction, Michael took part in a documentary series known as The Staircase, with installments being released in 2004, 2013, and 2018. The film is now on Netflix, and in the series, Michael works alongside filmmakers to help prove his innocence, as still to this day, he claims he took no part in taking his wife's life and even pleaded guilty in court. So I guess this documentary, rather than actually ruining this guy's life, is actually trying to help it in a way. The filmmakers have stated that even though they've been working on the film for the better part of 15 years, they still remain uncertain whether or not Michael is responsible. They let the viewer make their own assumptions, though in the eyes of the law, Michael is 100% to blame. Number 1. In 2015, a series of 11.5 million documents were leaked to the public and became known worldwide as the Panama Papers. The documents contained information regarding businesses who were developed for the sole purpose of covering up illegal activity, fraud, and tax evasion. The papers showcased how criminals used offshore accounts to hide funds from the wealthy so that they didn't need to pay taxes on them. A film by the same name, The Panama Papers, was released in 2018. The film details how more than 300 reporters came together from over 80 individual countries to investigate these accounts and attempt to bring these criminals and business owners to justice. In 2017, another batch of documents was released detailing several additional business owners and even celebrities who'd been involved in wrongdoings. One example of this was singer Shakira, who was found to have transferred $30 million into an offshore investment business. Madonna was also found to have hidden her money in a medical business in Bermuda, and the estate of the Queen of England was known to have stored over $10 million in offshore businesses, though the Queen herself was not found to have been personally responsible for this. To this day, these investigations are still ongoing, and many of the celebrities and criminals responsible for these crimes remain at large. The film is a great watch for anyone interested in the topic, but much like myself, are lacking in legal knowledge required to fully understand exactly what these accusations entail. So give it a watch. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to click that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep updated with our videos.